Hey, what's up, everybody? Sean Michael Afable here. I'm here with special guest Nate Kalima. Nate, you're a businessman. You've been doing a lot of different stuff these days, but you are also the director of Continental Miss World Philippines USA. I mean, you're a man of many different talents. So we're going to be jumping into this. Welcome to the Sean Michael Afable Show. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Sean Michael Afable Show. We're going to be interviewing Nate. So, Nate, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you, man. It's been great knowing you as a friend, the last couple of years, and man, we've just been doing a lot of fun stuff. But I've never really sat down with you and asked you about your life. How you became a businessman, how you got into pageantry and everything else. We had a little bit of story about when you were younger, but just for people who are watching, people want to get to know you a little better. Can you just give me like a little snapshot of your early life and how you became a businessman and got into pageantry?
Sure. Well, I'm Nate Kalima. I am 34 years old, and I was born. I was born in LA, and I grew up on the border of Long Beach and Compton, California.
Cool.
The safest neighborhood in the world in the early 90s. I loved it, though. I think that was part of my upbringing, part of the diversity and understanding
right now.
Understanding the diversity of people, understanding a little different mindsets, and you got to see a lot of different kinds of people. And so, growing up in Long Beach was a great experience, and seeing different backgrounds and cultures molded me into the person I am today. And so, fast forward, I ended up going to college at a very young age for my first course. So right out of 8th grade, so I was 13 years old, I immediately went to have my first college course. I was a computer science major, CBA 6, and the only thing I did that was different than anybody else is that I just asked the dean if I could go there. And that is a small quirk of my personality, which has given me a lot of advantage in life, is to ask. Ask and ye shall receive.
Yeah.
And so the more that you ask and not be afraid to ask questions, the more others will give you the answer. And so I think that's the hardest part, is that especially with our ego and our fear of rejection, that we don't know how to ask.
Yeah.
When in reality, what would have it hurt just to ask?
Right.
So that's how I was able to go to college. And what happened is that in that first course, it was CBA 6, Computer Business Information Sciences, I'll never forget sitting down next to somebody. And he started cussing. Not in a bad way. He was, well, maybe, okay, all cussing's bad, but more, he was just like, okay, he was just looking at me, and he basically said, "Hey, how old are you?" And after he started cussing up a story about something, he was like, "Oh, I'm 13. And when you're 13, you're excited, you're loud, you're obnoxious, and you're just excited about life. And he looked at me with a very stoic looking voice and said, "Welcome to the rest of your life." Changed my life. Because this is a guy, looks like he was 40s, I'd say, probably trying to start a new career, maybe pivot, and it made me say to myself, where am I going to be where I am right now at this age? And so...
You were 13 at the time.
I was 13.
Wow.
And mother's a dentist, father's a clinical lab scientist, former United States Navy, and so on and so forth. So you had two parents that were both from professional backgrounds. You have family who now, a lot of my family are nurses and doctors and things like that. And so they all had a medical job type background. And so that's what set me on a path. You see, going to college early set me on a path to forego the education part and do self-education and actually get into entrepreneurship. Eventually, I found someone. I was just, once again, ask questions. He had a really nice car.
Okay.
And then I simply asked this guy with a really nice car, I was like, "Hey, do you go here? Like, what do you do?" And he said, "No, I'm just picking up my girlfriend." And I said, "Okay, that's great." And I said, "Well, what do you do? If you don't mind me asking, I'm young. I'm still figuring out what I want to do with my life. What do you do?" And he said, "Well, I never graduated." And that blew my mind.
What kind of car was he driving?
I think, if I remember correctly, it was a Porsche 911.
Okay.
So,
nice.
Yeah, when I was a young kid, so I don't know. It looked good, nice to me.
So he never went to college?
No,
he didn't graduate or anything?
He was he told me, he said he was some sort of entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I didn't really remember exactly what he did, but then he started talking to me about the things I should be doing, and one of those things was personal development. And before I go on to that part, Yeah. Anything else that you want to add on to that? Any questions that you got from that?
I mean, that was it's really interesting. I mean, it seems like you started college and self-education even at a very, very young age. You know, what kind of pushed you to do that? You started going to college at 13. Where were you going to school before that? And then what kind of made you want to go one step further?
I don't know where the drive came from. I did have some little nuances when I was younger. I started reading at a very early age. And there is a discrepancy that people who do read very early have a different developmental cycle.
Yeah.
I started reading adult books at the age of 4.
Yep.
So at the Dana Branch Library in Long Beach, I had a library card. I didn't know how to write correctly, so it was like my entire first name. And then it had a little sticker that said AD OK, so adult section OK. I did go to preschool, and I was the one reading in front of the entire class.
Wow.
For the most part, leading the class. I didn't think that was anything special at the time or anything different. It was just the abilities I had at the time. So I don't know if this ever counts, but my favorite show to watch, and still to this day, is Star Trek. And Star Trek is really big on critical thinking, things like that, and it really fascinated me, the critical thinking processes. So that could have made a factor too.
That's interesting. I never thought that like a TV show like that, sci-fi, would actually inspire critical thinking. But that's cool. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's why I like Star Trek. It's not just a bunch of faux explosions and special effects. Each show had a moral situation at the very end of the episode.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And I started
moral
watching
underpinning, sort of. Yeah.
Yes, I started watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I believe I was 4 years old. I think it was on Channel 13 at the time, and I would not miss it every single week. And it was something that made me really think critically about life. So that could have been a basis of something different. So you could thank Star Trek.
That's cool. Thanks, Star Trek, for making Nate Kalima. That's funny. All right, so you talked to this guy. He said he was an entrepreneur. He never went to college. What happened after that? Where did you go from there?
Well, he said a few things that he was doing: real estate, investments. One thing that really got to me was personal development. That's the one that really changes your life. And so my suggestion for anybody who is just starting out, doesn't know where to start, regardless of the country that you live in, personal development. Okay, cool.
That was kind of my next question.
Sure,
was like,
go for it.
When it comes to personal development, no matter what country you're in, we're going to be going to the Philippines, so maybe you can speak a little bit to that. But for young people, maybe maybe they're 13 like you, or maybe they're 17, 18, they're just getting their life going. Let's say, you really had nothing to your name. You're just starting out. You know that you need to make money somehow and have a life and create a life for your own. What would you say? What kind of advice would you give to somebody who doesn't really have a direction, doesn't know what they should do, where they should go, what they should become? What is their first step into figuring all that out?
Well, personal development.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, essentially, from a young age, whether you're the parent or whether you're just starting out, personal development, the way that you shape your mind. So basically, you got to till the soil before you harvest it in the spring or the fall. I mean, that's what is going to create your mindset in order to become very successful. So, for example, why is it there's a lot of people who are thrust into a financial situation where they're very, very rich, where they're very successful in a very short period of time, whether it be professional sports, movies, lottery, whatever it might be, and a high percentage of them lose it all. It's because of the lack of financial and personal development. Whether it's from the spiritual side, from being at church, to the personal development side of economics, and so on and so forth. So the first person that I really, really got into was a guy named Jim Rohn, Jimrohn. He was the one who eventually taught Tony Robbins, Les Brown, all the greats. The reason why I liked Jim Rohn is because he's simple. He was simple. He taught capitalism. He taught things in a way that you could understand it. So many mentors nowadays are so metaphysical, and they use these big words that no one understands.
Very ethereal, but there's no practical. It's just like work hard, but no real practical.
The practical, simple stuff that you can apply to your daily life in the beginning makes a lot more sense to do. He was doing things like, you are the sum average of the 5 people that you closely associate yourself with. Take your 5 best friends, that's you. So at a young age, if you are being a lot more choosier, of course you're going to do the dumb stuff. But if you're choosier, about the friends that you're with, because it's a seed in your mind, then essentially what's going to happen is that those 5 good friends are going to influence you the right way. If you choose 5 wrong friends, well, you'll have the sirens in the background coming after you.
Right.
That
was apropos.
He said things like, some people you're spending 5 minutes with, you really should be spending 5 hours with.
Yeah.
Some people you're spending 5 hours with, you really should be spending 5 days with. Some people you're spending 5 days with, you really should be spending 5 minutes with. Jim Rohn had all these little things that essentially led to a personal developed individual. And once you have that mindset, then you could put that into action. Because then you stop caring about the things that don't matter. So a lot of times we choose actions because of an ego, or we're afraid of the fear of rejection, and so on and so forth. And because of that ego, it stops us from creating opportunity. Why was I able to have my first college course when I was 13? I wasn't any smarter than anybody else. I did one simple thing. I asked the dean if I'm able to go here. That's all I did that's different. Everyone else probably had the same option as long as they take the same tests. So if you have the mindset right, the personal development, financial development, it'll allow you to do the same thing in your personal life and do what? Grab onto opportunity. So first and foremost, personal and financial development is the number one thing you got to do.
Yeah. Okay, so personal development. Would you say that a mentor is necessary, or certain books, or how does someone get into that personal development of where do they start? With the financials, with the, where would you go? Like if you're just trying to give somebody advice, like they're asking you, I don't know anything what I should be doing in my life. I grew up and I don't have much to my name, but I want to do something great. I want to become something. What books do you recommend? What mentors recommend? YouTube videos or advice straight from you? What would you say?
That's part 2. So yes, do find a mentor.
Okay.
It'll drastically cut down your learning time. Mentors can come in all forms, shapes, sizes. Spiritual mentors, personal development mentors, teaching you how to be a good person inside of God, and then also teaching you how to be a person valuable in the marketplace. Those are two different things. Sometimes together, but those are 2 different things for the most part. Once you have the personal development down, and once again, Jim Rohn, people like that is my favorite because they're simple. They're things that you can understand and apply to your daily life. And then finding a mentor in spaces that you're interested in.
Okay.
Because the one problem that I see is that say you have a career, and say you go to college, and a lot of people are simply applying for a major, and then they look and they do it for a year or 2 years, find out it's not for them. That's okay. It happens. Why don't you just call people who are already in the field that you want and ask them questions?
Yeah. I heard about this, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how, what people should be doing is, if they're interested in a certain major or subject or profession, they should go and tour the facility. Yep. Go see what that person would be doing every single day, because if you're going to be working that job and you're going to be doing 8 hours a day, that's how many years of your life you're going to spend doing that.
Sure.
You should go, and you're going to spend all this money on getting the education for it. You should go to the factory or to the business or to whatever it is that you think that you want to do, and really assess whether or not that job day in and day out is right for you. I mean, why spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars for some people, and get an education in this field, and then get the job, and then finally realize that you hate what they're doing, day in and day out. You might as well go tour the facility, get a real understanding of what they're doing every single day. And I think that was, a really good point, that if you think you're interested in one area, and tell me what you think, you should go and figure out what that really looks like on a day-to-day basis, so you don't hate it at the end of it.
And that's part of our own ego and fear of rejection. Is that essentially, it seems very logical as we articulate it, and perhaps maybe it's sparking the mind that will actually do that right now. However, why not do that? So you're interested in finance, email the vice president. People think that because you have a title, that it's a reflection of their leadership ability. That's not true. Essentially, you're a leader when you decide to become a leader. And you'd be surprised. A lot of people who are executives would probably welcome, unless they're really stressed out at the time, they'd probably welcome an email and say, hey, someone's interested in what I'm doing. That's interesting. Few people reach out as much as you think. And so when we see an email or a message like that, we'll respond for the most part. And if they don't, there's plenty of other executives who will talk to you. Vice president, president, goes very to the top. And if they can't answer that, go to the senior executives and so on and so forth. You'll find somebody who will talk to you.
You've worked with a lot of employees and associates and whatnot in your different businesses. What would you say made who is, you don't have to say the name, but like what made the best employee you ever had the best employee you ever had?
Best one to me is someone who is, quite frankly, is right more often than wrong. Is that interesting?
That is interesting.
Because I could care less. Earlier on, maybe 20 years ago, everyone was like, well, that's your education and so on and so forth. Coming from a Filipino background, I get it.
Yeah.
The reason why I understand it from a Filipino background, and I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, is because, think about it this way, 20, 30, 40 years ago and so on and so forth. There's memes on Facebook and MySpace and so on and so forth, where you'll see kids basking in the light of Jollibee just to do their studies. So back in the day, I get it. All you had, your chance to become successful is your studies. That's all. That's really what there is.
Yeah.
Once you have your degree or education, you leverage that into a fulfilling career or become an OFW and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, in the information age and the coming fourth industrial revolution, you have so many options.
Okay.
You have a cell phone, things like that. You could do a lot more options.
Yeah.
However, we're still stuck in the old mindset. So essentially, back then, people were just like, well, whoever has the best degree and so on and so forth. Me, I was just like, well, I just want you to be right. If you're right more often than wrong, great.
Yeah.
And so that's probably my favorite asset. And I didn't understand that until later on when I saw that power players like Jeff Bezos of Amazon said the exact same thing.
Okay, interesting. Now, when you say right, do you mean like let me ask you this from this kind of sort of niche point of view. Would you say language, is, and communication, maybe even more specifically, that plays into being right more often than not, right? So, I mean, being able to communicate with what you're trying to say, understanding the information that you're taking in, that seems like to be one of the most important things, communication. Where would you say communication plays into personal development, and how important is that? Just say something about that.
It's big.
Yeah.
If you can command attention, the person with the marker in front of the room normally is the one making the most money. Essentially, if you don't always have to have the greatest language skills to be successful, especially here in the United States. We've seen it time and time again. So many immigrants who barely speak English become very successful here. That's great. However, it does give you a leg up. The ability to articulate yourself, present yourself in a way that you can essentially sell yourself and sell your ideas.
Yeah.
Whether you sell your ideas to your employer, sell your ideas to investors, sell your ideas to the peanut gallery, whatever it might be.
But enough that you can be right more often than not, like you're saying.
Or at least sound right.
Okay.
If you ever read Donald Trump's Art of the Deal,
Okay.
he just sounded right.
Oh,
He wasn't always right, but he just sounded right.
Okay.
He was a gruff voice. Great book, Art of the Deal. Regardless of what you think politically, read The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump and see what I'm talking about.
Interesting. Any other books that you recommend?
Personal development-wise,
Yeah.
21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by Pastor John C. Maxwell.
Okay. 21 Irrefutable Laws
Of Leadership.
Of leadership.
By Pastor John C. Maxwell.
Very cool. All right, I'll check that out.
Yeah, the first chapter is Law of the Lid, and essentially said, what's the difference between where McDonald's was before Ray Kroc and after Ray Kroc? Same burgers, same stand. Why did they succeed and no one else did? It's Ray Kroc. And that's part of the Law of the Lid. Essentially, we sometimes put lids on our own success. And so the more that we can raise our leadership lid, the more it can be successful. Imagine that. What was so different about McDonald's starting in, I think it's San Bernardino? It's a burgers place.
Yeah.
There's other burger places. They're great.
Marketing, make people feel a certain way.
The leadership of Ray Kroc.
Leadership.
Regardless of what you thought about him, you might have thought he was a scumbag. But because of what he did, his value to the marketplace, it grew by exponentially. And he had a great mind for it. That's what most people don't understand. You could be a great person in the sight of God. You could be a good person. It doesn't mean you're going to be very valuable to the marketplace.
Right.
There's a differentiation before you do the two.
What would you say is, what makes a person a good leader?
Good leader, I believe really big in servant leadership. The ability to get the job done regardless of a title, role. You've got people like Elon Musk. He's like, well, I'll be here and, who cares? Let's just get it done. Not only that, to be able to have understanding of not just the marketplace, but also your people. Be able to make sure that the needs of the company is not also in detriment to everything else that's going on, from internally to externally. There's a lot of things that necessitate a good leader. So maybe if we could be more specific.
What are some key elements of leadership that you see in some of the great minds out there, like Jim Rohn, or some of these other great businessmen, throughout the last 10, 15 years?
Sure. Richard Branson said best: any fool can make something complex. It takes a genius to make something simple.
That's true. I think Albert Einstein said the same thing.
Close. There's a lot of things attributed to Albert Einstein that's actually he never said.
Really?
Yeah, like the whole if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree,
yeah,
his whole life will think it's dumb.
Yeah.
He didn't say that. But it's a great, I don't know, that's a great quote.
What do you think of Albert Einstein's quote that was actually exactly the same as Mother Teresa's quote, life isn't worth living unless it's lived for others?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a Princeton study where essentially once you made in United States dollars, I think around 80,000, there's no difference in happiness. I need to see what the threshold was for happiness rather than making more than that. So meaning that you're just happy with more stuff. And I use happy very loosely. There's an emotional happiness. You can have all the money in the world, you still won't be fulfilled and happy. So I do notice that there's a lot of people who just feel great giving it all away. Because what's the point? Once I see a lot of my mentors. Once they've created all this great success, they're happy with success, they revert to who they were before, who they want to really be. I'm the same way too. When you first start, you think everyone wants the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and so on and so forth, which are great stuff. It's nice stuff.
Sure.
That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But one of my mentors, who's made $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a month, she's on Facebook Live every day making cauliflower pizza. She likes cooking, and that's what she does.
Yeah.
And she gives a lot away to charity.
Wow.
Someone I watch a lot, Ty Lopez, before. He just bought Radio Shack and Stein Mart and all these classic businesses, and he's like Amish right now. He's like living on a farm. And this is the guy with a Lamborghini here in my garage,
Yeah.
So it just really depends.
Yeah.
Different parts of the spectrum. I mean, essentially, once you take care of the money part, then you can worry about everything else in your life.
Yeah. What do you think about Kobe Bryant and his legacy? He wrote a letter kind of to his younger self, and he said that, he had given a lot of money to friends and family, just kind of giving it out, giving out. But it actually created resentment among the family. And he said that if you were to go back and change his actions, that what he should do instead is help, instead of just giving handouts, help them realize their own dream, their own purpose, their own life goal.
Biblical, isn't it? It really is. And the Bible has a lot of that answer. Once you keep God the center, because a lot of this so-called ancient knowledge isn't as difficult as you think. I mean, this is part of who we are. And essentially, finding each other's purpose. My purpose may not be your purpose. My happiness may not be your happiness. Money's a great thing to take care of all the essentials in life. Then you figure out your life. And the problem is a lot of people get so obsessed with one or two things, or they can't let go of, one or two things, maybe because of an ego or whatever it might be, and they start pursuing things that don't matter. You see, it's very prevalent here in LA too, and especially when you rise from the bottom. You want to take care of all your friends and family, when in the end it might be fun for the first day, first week, first few months, but eventually they get tired of it too. And it's not that they don't appreciate it, but there's something missing. And part of it might be because they're not earning it themselves. Part of it might be because they're keeping this image up so much where they feel unfulfilled. And it would have been better just to, what's the old quote? Teach a man to fish, to feed him for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's true until now. And sometimes it is part of an internal ego and saying, I want to be able to do this myself. And if you're going to put money, don't just give them money, invest it in their future. Find a way so that way they can earn it themselves, so that way they can give to the cute community. And guess what? The more successful they become, they're going to remember how you helped them, and they're going to give it back to you in some other way, form, or fashion.
Yeah, you're helping them build their own identity as opposed
That's
to...
the key.
Yeah.
Their own identity. You hit it right on the mark. It's easy to get a handout, But look what happens when you give so much of a handout. You become so reliant on that handout, but you're also partially resentful because of the handout. You're like, I hate having to always rely on the handout that's coming toward me. And I really wish that I was a lot more independent.
Yeah.
And it would have been a lot easier just to essentially say, hey, you know what, let me find a way for you to become independent yourself, pay me back later on.
I heard an interesting quote that I really thought was profound, that don't give your kids everything that you wish you had had when you were a kid. Teach them everything that you wish you knew.
I think that's attributed to Bruce Lee.
Was it Bruce Lee? I think it might have been Bruce Lee.
It could have been Bruce Lee. It could have been misattributed Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Everything's misattributed to somebody nowadays.
Yeah.
So regardless, it's a good quote,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I would completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Because especially coming from the hood and coming from places that you didn't have a lot of money, you think that just handing it out is the solution, giving them everything that materially you think that they want. In reality, they want to create a legacy for themselves too, and have a legacy that they're proud of.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think that part of it is like, we think of things, I want these things because we're kind of thinking in the immediate. But when we really step out of that and say, okay, do I really want things? Or what's more important? You go back to that quote, from Mother Teresa and Albert Einstein, life is worth living when it's lived for others. When you realize that things aren't what make people happy, but true relationship, And I think that, if there's one thing, how would you tell people about relationships, whether, even if you're a business person, how do you find, even though that's what you're focused on, you want to build your life on that material level, how do you find a balance in that when it comes to either romantic relationships or family? Where's the balance in that?
That's very difficult, and that's a loaded question.
Sure.
Yeah. So which one do you want to start with first? Relationships or?
Well, okay. So like, if life, isn't worth living unless it's lived for others, then where is the balance in business? Because even if maybe you don't have a large family, or maybe you don't have a significant other right now, or you're not looking for that, whatever it may be, where do you find the balance between business and fulfillment? Like, how do you find fulfillment, even though you're focused on business? Yeah.
Well, through charitable work, through giving back, through the church, being part of a community, being part of a community that truly cares, keeping the main thing. I mean, these are simple things which are innately within ourselves, that a lot of us do want to give back, because what is the point of having all the money and so on and so forth? You'll get more fulfillment of leaving a legacy. This is why a lot of people at the end of their life, they're more asking about their legacy, those who have made it financially and so on and so forth. Because other people, they talk about regret a lot. And that's the number one thing, regret.
What do they most regret?
Simple stuff sometimes. Not asking, and this goes back to fear of rejection and ego. What's the worst thing that could have happened by asking the girl out on a date? What's the worst thing that could happen by, starting that business? Here's the thing, guys, you're gonna die eventually, and time's gonna go by a lot faster than you think. So why not take those risks? Why not? It's the risk. See, you can become successful anywhere in the world, especially in the United States. You've won the lottery, being born here, when it comes to, especially with business. If you can get over two things, and one of them is the fear of rejection, the other one's getting the skills. But really, fear of rejection. Imagine this: if you were in sales and you could care less about your ego, which is another thing, ego. Ego means edging God out. If you can get
that's
over,
that's a good reminder. Yeah.
If you can get over the ego, fear of rejection. Imagine you're selling, I don't know, solar panels or nutrition or whatever it might be. Vitamins are good because I love doing that. That's what I do, nutrition.
Yeah, health.
Imagine if you got over the ego of being just, you're the vitamin guy. And because on Instagram, the problem with Instagram, Facebook, all that, everybody has a Lamborghini for some reason nowadays, or renting one, I don't care. But imagine that, no one really cares. It's cool to look at, it's cool to say, but imagine that you just become the vitamin guy and really work it hard for a year. And if I said that you could do that, you just talk to everyone, you'll make six figures or $1 million, would you do it? Most people would say yes, but ego-wise, they're scared to approach their friends, family, everyone else for being called the vitamin guy. And 5 years from now, or even before they die, they could realize what the negative things that people think probably would not have mattered.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, maybe one or two negative people who don't give a damn about me anyway.
Right.
So that's why if you want the key to success, get over that ego, get over the fear of rejection. So it goes back to what we were originally talking about. Find a mentor, personal development, find a vehicle that can create your financial dreams, and so on and so forth. Don't forget God always, and then essentially go at it. You know, my favorite example is a guy named Tillman Fertitta. He started in direct sales, network marketing, like I did, as an entrepreneurial venture in a company that sold vitamins. He got his ego out of the way. He got his Cadillac and all that. He leveraged all that income into starting a company called Landry's. And then he eventually bought things like the Houston Rockets. He bought the Golden Nugget Casino. He owns Mastro's and all those other. He's a billionaire because of it.
So a small guy.
But can you imagine that? Imagine it all started from him being a vitamin sales guy.
Wow, that's crazy.
And imagine if someone has an ego. Well, you know, I'm better than that. Oh, you know, I'm a doctor. Something. He was humble and coachable, and he built it up, and look what happened in the end. He became a billionaire.
Yeah, so he started off, you know, with something that makes sense. It's easy to get up off the ground.
Yep.
Practical. It was an opportunity, but he wasn't worried about what other people think about him.
That's the big killer. When you worry about what people think about you. Look at, there's a video out there by Elon Musk. Imagine this. His heroes thought he was an idiot.
Wow.
Now he's about to eclipse Bill Gates.
Wow.
Yeah, his heroes, you know, it's like, oh, you know, he's a pie in the sky guy. Oh, Tesla will never work. Now, Volkswagen is inviting him over, saying, what do you think about our car? He just started the electric revolution. All cars will be electric in the next 10 years.
Wow.
And it's because of the efforts partially by Elon Musk. He didn't even start Tesla. He joined Tesla. And it became him. You see what happens when one person decides to get his ego out of his way, take the criticism, just work hard, be humble, do the best that he can do. He's now going to be probably the richest man, second richest man next to Jeff Bezos. He'll probably be richer than Bill Gates.
Yeah, wow.
By getting the ego out of the way.
I would love to have been in those rooms when he was, you know, negotiating and you know, making his way into Tesla. That would have been, you know, astounding to see what those were like.
Even before that, even before PayPal, even before all these other things. You know, look at Jeff Bezos. He started in a 300 square foot or 400, whatever, some small square foot headquarters with Amazon spray painted on a sign. A lot of people had humble beginnings. Can you imagine how it is in the I think this is so fatal right now, is the Instagram generation.
Okay.
That you need to have this big glass, what's it called, office before you get considered a success, before you even start.
Right.
Kills you right away.
Yeah.
When in reality, you should be starting, most businesses start in their garage.
Yeah.
Apple, all these companies. I think probably maybe it was even better sometimes before social media because we're so wrapped up. It's a great tool now, but we're so wrapped up in the way our business looks rather than creating the action that will create success.
Right.
Which goes back down to personal development.
Yeah, you're not focused on the product, you're focused on how the product makes you look. And it goes back to the ego thing.
It's all ego, man.
Yeah.
Ego. Get over fear of the rejection, you'll have so much success. Because all you got to do is ask everybody.
Yeah.
What do you, oh, you want to buy? Oh, what do you think about this? Oh, leverage it, build a system, bam, you're done.
Cool. All right. You have anything else you want to say to our viewers?
We talked a lot.
I know we talked about so much there, but I think that was really helpful. Any last tips you want to tell them that'll, you know, inspire them to really dig deep and go after their dreams?
Yeah. I have a lot of words. I mean, I think we just went through a lot of it.
Yeah.
The key is here is that when people are at the end of their life, all they talk about, a lot of them, is regret. Don't be that person. The Lord, the Bible has given you so many stories, from the story of the talents, the parable of the talents, not to waste your life.
Right.
You guys, work really hard. Who cares about the ego? Because I understand, you know, God judges us on the inside, everyone else judges us on the outside.
Right.
And social media made it even worse.
Right.
The key is here is that spend a year not caring about what people think. Because you're going to be much happier 2, 3, 4 years from now once you're successful, and you might even have a new circle of friends and influence.
Yeah.
And then those people who said, oh, this moron starting his business in a garage, it's never going to take off, are going to be coveting you.
Right.
And things like that. But always stay humble. Just smile and be like, okay, great, that's fine. And keep that balance between your spiritual life and your business life. You know, because I truly believe that church will bless you, and I believe that by constantly going to church, it will keep you focused on your eternal happiness.
Right.
So essentially, if you keep your eye on the prize, your family, things like that,
Yep.
not worry about our internal ego, get over our fear of rejection, you can be very successful, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Because once you have all of that, your family, things like that, does it really matter anymore? All these ego things that matter, who cares? Why are we spending our entire life trying to please people that we don't even like? Isn't that crazy?
Good point.
Why is
yeah.
it that we go through car crashes and we look at the car crash, we don't see all the other cars, which are free flowing and nothing's wrong? We are somehow built this way for some reason. When in reality, a year from now, are we really going to care about the dumb things that we had in life?
Yeah.
Probably not. So that's why, keep the faith, be humble, work hard, do the best that you can, get over the fear of rejection, get over ego, have great friends like Sean Michael Afable, who you'll like, share, and subscribe. Is that a good segue?
Yeah, I know. That was a really good segue. Yeah, please like, share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram at Nate Kalima.
Or Nate Kalima TV. Also.
Nate Kalima TV on
YouTube.
YouTube. Subscribe to us. And thank you guys so much for listening to us. We had a great time talking about all this different stuff. I hope this was helpful to you. You know, for if you're a young guy or a young girl trying to figure out where to go in life. And please like and share this video and subscribe here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys in the next one.